Hey, church family. I hope you're having a good Thursday. It's a beautiful day outside, and hoping that you guys are doing well. You know, we always say that Sunday mornings are like the front door to our ministry, so, we're going ahead and we're going to bring you into the living room today. We're excited to come to you. We're in Chris's living room right now, and we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation with you, talk about some questions, how we can be thinking and processing and praying during the self-isolation. And so, yeah, we're going to get started with, we've got a few questions to ask. You good with that?
I'm good with that. Let's
Cool.
do it.
Cool. Well, the first question I want to ask is, so for people at home sitting here, it's like everything's crazy. It's like one day the news is this, the next day it's something else. How do we process all of this? Just, yeah.
Well, I keep asking myself that question too, because the news just keeps changing on it almost seems an hourly basis and not just a daily basis. And I was telling someone yesterday that I don't even think I could have imagined that we would be where we are today a week ago. Like, things are just changing so dramatically and so quickly. So here's how kind of I've been processing things, and I think this is helpful for us because there's so much information on the internet. There's so much information on CNN or Fox News or whatever your news source is. And so here's how I've been processing this is I feel like you have like one extreme side that's basically saying this is no big deal. Everything just needs to get back to normal tomorrow. And there are even conspiracy theories of this as a hoax, and this is just a ploy to bring down the president or whatever. I mean, they're like, that's all one side of things. And then I feel like you go all the way to the other side, and I think people are just legitimately freaked out and scared because things are so hyped that you would think that this is a plague of epic proportion, and 50% of the world is going to die from this. And the reality is, I think we're somewhere in the middle. I mean, I don't think it's doom and gloom over here, and I certainly don't think it's a hoax or some conspiracy theory. This is real. This is real. There are people who are really sick. There are people who have really died from this, and from my standpoint, I have to trust voices who are experts in things that I'm not. And so I'm not an infectious disease expert. I'm not a medical expert, and I'm not one of the governing authorities. And so if those experts and those authorities have come to this conclusion, the Bible calls us to obey the governing authorities. And so if the governing authorities are telling us to stay at home if all possible, then we should probably stay at home if at all possible. And if I should not go to work, then I should not go to work. And then what we do is we wait this out over the coming weeks and see where the Lord brings us. But I don't believe as Christians that we should buy into conspiracy theories, and I don't believe as Christians that we should just go into fear and a depression on this in ways that would not be helpful for us, our families, or our culture. We need to be people of reason. James chapter 3 talks about that we should let our reasonableness be known to those who are around us. And I believe this is an opportunity for us as Christians to be reasonable people, and that would be my encouragement to us as a faith family.
Yeah, that's good. And so, if we're being reasonable, if we're thinking through this and we're level-headed, how do we engage spiritually? How should we be praying during this time?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of us with prayers, I think sometimes our prayers can just be as simple as, Lord, just help us get back to normal and just take all this away. And I don't think that's a bad prayer to pray. I think that can be a part of our prayers. And we're actually going to be putting together a more comprehensive prayer guide for you. And you should be seeing that probably in the next 24 hours to help us think a little more strategically about how to fashion our prayers. But just for the sake of this video, let me just kind of give you some thoughts. These are some ways that I've been praying. I've been praying, first of all, for the sick. That I mean, there are people who are really sick from this virus right now, and they're having a hard time breathing. They're not all people in their 60s and older, but a large part of the population are our older brothers and sisters and our friends and family. And so we can be praying, God, would you alleviate suffering wherever there is suffering? Would you be healing the sick where people are sick? For those who have lost family members, we can be praying that God would show himself to be the God of all comfort, like 2 Corinthians chapter 1 talks about, that God would comfort the grieved, and he would be near to those who have lost loved ones. From a cultural standpoint, the Bible tells us in 1 Timothy 2 that we should pray for the governing authorities. And so this is an opportunity, whether you have voted for the present Congress or whether you have voted for the current president or not, that's beside the point. The Bible calls us to pray for the governing authorities. And so I've been praying for President Trump. I've been praying for Vice President Pence. I've been praying for the senators and congressmen who are making these decisions about these stimulus bills and the economic impact. We can pray for the CDC and the World Health Organization and those leaders who are advising our governing authorities and what to do. So we should be praying for these people, that they would operate out of wisdom and knowledge and also compassion for the people so that the common good may flourish. And then I think we can be praying for our church, for our families' lives. I mean, this entire pandemic is upsetting not only people's individual lives who are sick, but it's also disrupting ministry. I mean, it's disrupting the ability to minister to people's spiritual needs in ways that we would normally do so. And so we should be thinking about our church family. God, would you provide for us? Would you provide financially for us during this time so that your mission may continue? Father, would you use this opportunity as an opportunity also for us to reach out to our neighbors and to befriend our neighbors and our friends and and look for opportunities to serve them? And we can talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But there are many ways we can pray during this time, and I'll just leave it there for now because we're going to share with you a little bit more of a comprehensive guide in how to pray during this time, and you should be getting that in the next day or so.
So the world seems turned upside down. For most of the people watching this, time is now, you've got plenty of time on your hands, whether that's you're not commuting to work, even if you're just telecommuting, you're not commuting. You've got some people, like, work just looks differently. So for most of us, we've got more time on our hands. For some people, it probably feels like we've got, for parents, time looks a lot different. So how should we be spending our time and thinking about time during this?
Yeah, I mean, let's just first of all just say it's weird, right? I mean, people who really enjoy being at home, people who enjoy spending time with their family, let's check in again at the end of this week and see if that's still the case, right? So, no, but in all seriousness, we have a lot more time on our hands right now. And even for those of us who are working from home and trying to do our jobs, it's still not the same. For those who are trying to educate their kids at home, it's not the same as being in a classroom. And then I think also there's this, there can be, even for those of us who are more performance oriented and productive oriented, there can even be, I think, a level of guilt that comes in at this moment because I just don't feel as productive. I feel like I'm wasting all of my time. And then you go to the other side of the coin. There are people who really struggle with laziness and sluggardness, right? And it's circumstances like this that can totally exacerbate those qualities, and that can lead you to a downward spiral of how to use your time. So I think for both of these instances, for everybody, I think one of the key things to remember right now is to live by grace. I think we need to understand that this is not a normal time. And so however I'm choosing to work, however I'm choosing to interact with my family or my friends, however I'm choosing to recreate during this time, we need to live by grace because it's not a normal time. And so I would just encourage you as you're praying and as you're seeking the Lord to extend to yourself even a measure of grace and not enslave yourself in a prison cell of just productivity and feeling like if I don't measure up to this on any given day that I'm just a failure during this time. Because I really believe the enemy could have a field day with a lot of us during this time. So with that being said, I would just tell you a couple of things. If you're working from home, try to be as productive as possible. Try to make your day as much like a work day as you can. And I think the key phrase in there is as you can. It's not going to be the same working from home as if you were in your office or you were at the company where you work. It's going to be different. And so just frame those expectations. And so you try to be as productive as you can and extend yourself grace where you can't. I think for those of us who just do have more time on our hands, and I think for most of us that's probably the fact, I would encourage you to guard yourself against filling all of that extra time with social media, Netflix, and Disney Plus. All right, so I know that's the temptation, and I'm a fun guy. I mean, I just watched Frozen 2 the other day. That was awesome. Been waiting to watch that as a Disney fan, and so that was cool. So I'm about recreating. I'm about watching TV shows. I just finished The West Wing season 7 for like the 10th time, and not during this pandemic,
Okay.
but like total in my life. And so I'm about watching stuff too. I'm about recreating. But here's the thing. If you just fill all of your time with social media or Netflix or any other streaming service, it's going to exacerbate your guilt. It's going to exacerbate your feelings of not being productive. And so, yes, put some of that in there, but there are so many other things that you can do. This is such a great opportunity to read. Mm-hmm. And I mean, let's go back to the 19th century for a little bit, right? So people read books. And I think and you hear me talk about this a lot of times at church, just with spiritual disciplines. I think one of the symptoms, one of the causal agents that's causing us to be as unproductive as we are in our culture right now is just a lack of knowledge, and we don't read anymore. And so this is a great opportunity to read. Read something you wouldn't normally read. And it could just be, you could read 10 pages a day or 20 pages a day. You could figure out what your reading aptitude is and measure that out for yourself. But read a book and keep going through that until we kind of get back to normal again. Have conversations with your family. I mean, perhaps with all the hustle and bustle being taken away, where we're not rushing home to get dinner on the table and then rushing out to go to soccer practice or to this practice or to this PTA gathering or whatever it is, actually linger at the dinner table right now and have conversations about life and what's going on in each other's lives. Learn how to sit around a table or around the coffee table in the living room and play board games. And whether you're a family, whether you're a married couple, or whether you live with roommates, we can do this within your family unit and wherever you live. And so even that can be a way to spend your time in a recreational way, but also in a very relational way. And so we're already socially distanced because of the pandemic. Within our four walls of our homes, let's not then be even more distanced socially by just binging on media right now. And so, yes, consume some, but at the same time, there are other things that we could be doing.
Yeah, so as we're thinking about time, and you just said there are other things that we can be doing, I think it's helpful to think about how do we engage missionally now with some extra time even from our homes.
Yeah, so and I'm guessing that what we're talking about here with engaging missionally is thinking about disciple making. And We talk about disciple making a lot at Mill City Church and Christian Student Fellowship, and it's at the very core of our ministry, and we talk about it all the time. And that's actually been one of the burdens of my heart as I've been praying, is because I know that there were significant relationships that many of our people were building with lost friends and family members, and they were reading the scriptures with them, exploring the Gospel of John with them, or reading through an evangelistic resource together. And then this hits, and now all of a sudden, how do you continue to make disciples when the authorities are saying that we have to be distanced from each other? So we can't sit across the table at Starbucks anymore. We can't gather in our homes in the same way as we used to. So what do? Well, the beautiful thing about technology, for all of its ills, and you guys have heard me teach on the ills of social media and technology and what that's doing to our brains and what that's doing to us relationally. Now there's opportunity for that to be redeemed in significant spiritual ways. I mean, whether it is FaceTime, whether it is Zoom, or Facebook Messenger, or WebEx, like whatever it is, like there's so many different platforms that we can use. We can have conversations with people. We can pray with people. We can even discuss the Bible with people. We can discuss books with people, just as if we were sitting across the table from them. And sure, it's going to be different. And we may not experience all of what that would normally entail, but it's still significant enough that that spiritual work can take place in people's life. I mean, you've been doing this.
Yeah, I mean, nothing that you haven't already said, but like I've been able to have one-on-one times over FaceTime or Facebook video. I've done a group chats, group videos, and it was actually funny because some of the guys that are used to coming over to my place for Bible study, I'm always drinking like a tea or a coffee or something. And the other day I was doing a video and I was making coffee as I was talking to them. And one of the guys said, "It feels like we're there because you're still making your coffee." And they weren't there, but we were able to have good discussion. We were able to pray together and invest in one another spiritually during this time through digital means. And I've also said, like, it's good to, like, we can be thankful that this happened today and not 30 years ago, where we didn't have the means to stay in touch and see each other the way we do today.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't fall into the temptation that this is just simply an extended snow day, right? So I really believe that could be one of our greatest enemies here, is just seeing this as an extended snow day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. None of us knows how long this is going to take place. There's still mission that can be had in meeting with people via technological means. And the other thing I would say, and we're going to talk about this again probably next week with you, but thinking, how can I minister to my neighbors during this time? I heard a story of one of our families in our church this last weekend, and they actually, I would like to know where, I didn't ask where they found it from, but they actually found toilet paper from somewhere. And what they did is they took rolls of toilet paper and just kind of wrapped them up in tissue paper, individual rolls, and put them in the mailboxes of their neighbors down the street. And that's just a simple way of just simply saying, we're thinking about you and we want to reach out to you. And the reality is, friends, as we fast forward down the road weeks and the next few weeks and the next couple of months, there's going to be real human suffering that comes from this. And I mean, unemployment claims are record highs right now. There are going to be opportunities to serve our neighbors with needs, with food, praying for them and other means. And we say every Sunday morning when we dismiss you from worship, Mill City Church, you are sent. And now more than ever in our lifetimes, we've got to be thinking about that on a daily basis and not simply waiting for a directive from me or from another staff member or elder to go tell you what to do, but to take all of the biblical knowledge that you've been given and all the training that you've been given to go out into your community, go out in your neighborhoods and your workplaces in these coming weeks and be the church and live sent in your world. And that's the opportunity that's waiting for us as this pandemic continues and as we see where the road leads us in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, being a part of the church, how do we stay connected to one another, to the body? What does that look like for us during this time as Mill City Church?
Yeah, it's hard not meeting on Sunday mornings, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's been one of the things of the last couple of weeks, and we've only experienced 2 weeks so far. This Sunday will be week 3. It's hard when you're not shoulder to shoulder and face to face, and that's being lost right now. And there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. And so we're going to continue live streaming, and I know that's been a challenge the last couple of weeks. The first week, we literally had 24-hour turnaround to figure this out, and so just kind of did the best we could in that first week. Last week, you guys did a remarkable job with the videoing and the overlay and everything, just top-notch professional quality, and it was completely out of your hands.
Yeah, we did everything we could. Like you said, we had just a short amount of time. The first week, the second week, we spent a lot of time researching, trying to make it as good as we can. I think the final product is great. We're really happy with it. And we're going to try and maintain that level of quality going forward. But we'll probably try and continue to just change things up. We have a couple ideas of how we're going to make it hopefully even better this coming week. And I would say stay tuned to how we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do everything that we can to make it as smooth as possible, so that everybody can be watching at the same time without glitches, without interruptions. And the thing that we can always count on, though, is that afterwards it will be smooth, even if it's not initially. But we think we've got some ideas for how to pull it off this week.
Yeah, and the reality is the issues that you experienced on Sunday. I mean, I don't know anybody personally, so we can just throw them under the bus. It was Facebook's issue. I mean, Facebook, what we're discovering, and we're not the only church that's experiencing this, Facebook just does not have the strength to live stream this many things at the exact same time every week.
I was looking at outage maps during Sunday's service, and the whole eastern seaboard was all red at the same time. And no one could have planned for this, that this many people would be trying to log in and continue to do church through digital means at the same time with this many people.
Yeah, and so we are definitely working towards a smoother process this Sunday, and so just keep tuning in, and at 10:30, and with each passing week, it's going to get better and better. But please stay connected, and like Robbie said, even if God forbid this week there are glitches at 10:30, the full video in its entirety with no glitches at all will be ready for playback as shortly after that as possible. And so whether you watch at 10:30 Sunday morning or whether you watch at 6 o'clock Sunday night, our worship gatherings are going to be online. And here's our commitment. I shared this on Sunday, but I'll say it again. In all of this confusion and chaos that we're experiencing, our lives have been disrupted in so many ways as a result of this pandemic. We are trying our hardest to make the live stream as much like Sunday morning as possible, because we want normalcy for you. We want you to be able to tune in and watch what you are accustomed to experiencing week in and week out. And I just believe from a psychological and a spiritual standpoint that safety net and normalcy is important for us as human beings. And so we're going to keep that as our goal. Community groups, our community group leaders have done a great job of trying to be creative and how to stay connected during this time. If you've been a part of a community group, really lean into your community group leader and be a part of this to try to figure out which digital platform is going to work best for you and your group. Even if it's simply tuning in for 15 minutes or 30 minutes and simply praying together and reading a quick paragraph together, just doing that weekly check-in. But I also want to emphasize to you guys on staying connected. Over and over again, you hear me teach from Ephesians 4 that the role of the shepherds and the elders, the teachers, it's our role is to build you up and to equip you, the body, to be the body for the work of the ministry. And again, now more than ever, you have the opportunity to prove that. Each member out there, each member of our congregation, each regular attender of our congregation. So check in on each other. Email, text, FaceTime, call, write cards, text the people of your community group, or text other people in the church whom you encounter on a regular basis. What's your address? I'd love to write you a card. What's your phone number? Could we FaceTime? There are opportunities for us to stay connected. And I think one of the worst things that could happen right now, when you remove the virus, remove the economics, think about the spiritual realities right now. I think one of the worst things that could happen during this time is that followers of Jesus would just simply disband and go into our huddles and our different places of residence and not reach out to each other and just disconnect from the body. So use these resources that we have and stay connected with each other. It's a personal responsibility for each member of the body to do that, and we want to encourage you to do that.
Yeah, thanks for that challenge. That's really good to be reminded of, and yeah, we'll be praying for you guys during this time as well, and know that we are doing that. And so I want to just take a moment to turn now. So for you personally, so what are some scripture verses that you're thinking about and meditating on during this time?
Yeah, so there are so many that I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, but I've narrowed it down to, I think, 3 that I would just point our attention to today. And the first one is from Psalm 90, verse 2. And in Psalm 90, verse 2, the psalmist writes this: "Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." And the reason why I go here first is because this is what my heart needs. Because I know that I'm wired in such a way, and I don't think that you're any different. I think our human heart, we go here what's right in front of us. And so what's right in front of us is pandemic and disruption. Pandemic and disruption. And so where's a Bible verse that speaks to pandemic and disruption? But what our hearts need the most is not to look here. What our heart needs the most is to look up. And what the psalmist reminds us of there is that before there was ever a planet Earth, before there was ever an American economy, before there was ever a COVID-19, there was God. And God was, God is today, and God will still be God and who he is when all of this is over. And I need to be reminded of that, and I want to remind you of that. Another verse I think about is a verse that you shared with me actually the other day from your own Bible reading, and it's from Psalm 112, verses 6 and 7. And now here is a verse that is very applicable in the midst of our disruption, our chaos right now. And the psalmist writes, "For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord." And friend, I want you to know that in this world of chaos and confusion right now, one of the greatest gifts that we, the church, can give to our friends, our family, our neighbors, our roommates is something that's steady and sure and it's confident. And so when we as the body of Christ can look at people in the eye and say, yeah, this is confusing, but let me tell you who brings order to our confusion. And here's why I'm concerned, but I'm ultimately not worried. And the reason is because the Lord is the Lord, and my trust is in him. And because of my faith in him, I'm not afraid of bad news, because I know in his sovereignty and his care. And so I think about Psalm 112, verses 6 and 7. And then lastly, I would think about Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength." And you've heard me preach on this numerous times. And in the Old Testament, that word wait is not just a, Well, Lord, when are you going to? That's not what we mean by that. The word wait in the Old Testament has the connotation of trusting, hoping. And this is where I would tie together Psalm 112 with Isaiah 40. It says, so for those who wait for the Lord, those who trust in the Lord, put their hope in the Lord, they shall renew their strength. And I think about, for my fellow comic book nerd friends, I think about Superman in the Fortress of Solitude. You'll appreciate this, right? So when Superman goes to the Fortress of Solitude, that's the place where he goes to be re-energized. That's the place where he goes to get his strength, and where he reflects, and where he meditates, and he comes out stronger from going to the Fortress of Solitude. And what the prophet Isaiah basically writes here for us, put it in our context, is that those who wait, hope, trust in the Lord, that waiting, that trusting, that hoping is our Fortress of Solitude moment. It's the place where we renew our strength. And so during this time where you're confused, where you're doubting, and where we don't know what the future holds or what the next few weeks are going to bring to us, be waiting, be trusting, and be hoping. And the rest of that passage says, when you do that, you will mount with wings like eagles, you shall run and not be weary, and you shall walk and not faint. So those are just a few things that we wanted to share with you today. We hope this is encouraging to you as you are in your isolation, in your social distancing. We want you to know that we're going to keep doing things like this in the coming weeks to just check in with you, let you know we're praying for you, bring you some encouragement and hope in the midst of it until we can see each other face to face again. And one last thing that I would want to tell you is that we have not stopped being the church since we're not gathering together on Sunday mornings. We may not be in the office every day. We may not be at church on Sunday mornings together as a big faith family. But we want you to know that your elders are here, your staff are here, and we are here to encourage you, pray for you, and to meet needs that we can meet. And so if you or you know someone who is in need during this time of isolation and separation, please let us know. We may not be able to meet every single need that comes across our desk, but we're going to meet needs as we're able to meet them. And we can't meet needs if we don't know about them. So if you or someone else you know is in crisis and we can help, please reach out to us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate that. And as we say every Sunday,
Mill City, until we see you again, you are sent. So have a great rest of the week. I hope you'll tune in on Sunday morning.